If there's one thing I'm sure of, it's that if you like video games, the future is looking really expensive, almost too much so, right? These companies need to create forward momentum in order to get you to buy into their ecosystems, PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo, even Steam, and the truth is that things are starting to break. And the boom of memory chips alone is making things really unreasonable. There's a lot to get into today, but I wanted to ask the question, is console gaming going to fall apart because of all of this? IGN, for example, said it here, that the $500 console is gone, and I mean it is. You can't buy anything for cheap anymore. Even old school hardware like the Nintendo DS is so sought after these days, it's selling for 2020 PS5 prices right now in store. It's become very obvious there's really no turning back from this, okay? Consoles were meant to be cheaper because they were used as a way to get into games. They may not have been as strong as the highest end PC, but they did get the job done, so they were still popular. But these days, I wouldn't say console gaming isn't popular, it's just that nobody can really afford it anymore. Look at this, PS5 sales dropped 58% this year. That's bad. In May this year, even the spending that Americans did on PS5 games dropped by 43%. And when you look further, it gets wild. The PS5 is currently sitting at around $672 American thanks to the April 2026 price hike by Sony already. The Xbox Series X is now officially $800, which just went into effect on August 1st, 2026, and the Switch 2 is set to hit $500 American on September 1st, 2026, and I gotta say, it's very unreasonable, especially since I live in Canada. So these prices are all gonna balloon to closer to like $1,000 or more pretty much after taxes. How's anyone supposed to now get into this hobby? As you can see, the PS5 sales even last year dropped a staggering 58%, which led to a 43% drop of consoles being bought year over year, and they're now even more expensive. This is, not kidding, the first time in history of games, at least for me, where a console I bought day one costs more now than it did at release. Tech Radar even did a report on how Valve's Steam Deck, a once highly sought after handheld, has now dropped its sales by a staggering 82%. Shouldn't really come as a surprise since the LCD and OLED models of the Steam Deck have been also affected by memory prices too. Another website claimed here that the Steam Deck has increased by an eye-watering 54% price jump in the last little while. Yeah, it's really no wonder why sales then dropped 82%. Nobody can really afford the Steam Deck anymore. The Steam Deck now, thanks to this price increase, is worth $1,200 Australian or $789 American for a handheld console that can't, by the way, play every new game available on Steam due to its hardware limitations it already has. So now Valve has this handheld that they want to sell, but they can't because it loops back to the same reason as before, that no one can afford anything anymore. Even the Steam machine, right? Valve's console PC hybrid is currently listed at around $1,049 American, or in Australian dollars, that comes to about $1,609 for a PC hybrid console that's not even as strong as a PS5, mind you. This is beyond unreasonable, okay? Things are getting too expensive, and is this Valve's fault? Not really, no. The bigger problem here is, of course, AI and memory chips. The more I looked into it, however, the crazier it's getting. Did you know that these big tech companies' need for AI is so cutthroat these days that the companies are now essentially creating what I could only call small town-like factories, where these towns are nothing but gigantic AI data centers pretty much, that are just meant to power these companies' ambitions in the future. And I'm not even kidding. Stuff like ChatGPT and Gemini are requiring memory chips to the point where these companies are building towns for this stuff. As Windows Central showed it here, the AI RAM shortages are leading to around 70% of global memory being swallowed up whole by these data center town factories. AI firms are now buying up DRAM supplies years in advance, which leaves practically nothing for the rest of the tech that's already out here. This led to a 50% increase in how much memory chips were going for in the last 3 months of 2025. By 2026, those numbers then jumped another 70% due to how sought after memory chips have become. This is like Pokemon scalpers, but for memory pretty much. But instead of dealing with some guy with a minivan buying up all the Pokemon card boxes when they come into the store, you're fighting Microsoft or Apple, who have billions of dollars, and you're supposed to be able to afford what they buy somehow too. You can't do it. Because of this, the PC gaming market space is set to shrink by 9% going into 2027. Some companies like Asus, Dell, or Lenovo, they are better equipped than most, but even then, the squeeze is squeezing. The Wall Street Journal said it plainly here, Because AI firms are crowding out other buyers of memory, unexpected consequences are likely to reverberate across countless industries. Effects could include delayed data centers, higher prices for laptops, TVs, and other consumer electronics, and possible chip shortages for automakers that would delay vehicle production in a potential repeat of the pandemic car crisis. Lovely. I'm looking forward to that, aren't I? Still though, the idea that these big tech companies are essentially creating town factories of AI data center stuff to power their futures is nuts to me. They're going to be making these spots and probably build lodging for their employees to oversee everything, and these people are just going to live in these small town factories to just look after the huge AI data centers for the rest of time. This is like Warhammer 40k stuff now. Until eventually in 100 years, we're going to have New York City sized data centers used to power ChatGPT. So some guy can make a meme of Elon Musk doing the War of Troy to post on Twitter for some likes. All the while, your gaming consoles, they're going to get even more expensive. It's going to become a luxury item. You might as well put on your dating app at this point that you're a proud owner of a gaming PC, PS5, or Nintendo Switch 2, because just owning these things is going to mean, oh, he has some money. You see, Windows Central said it here. These memory chips are being bought so much by the big companies. Capacity, it's already gone for 2027 and 28. So then I have to ask, where does this leave gaming then? Where can we even expect a future come next generation? As Level Up reported here, the PS6 and whatever comes next will likely be delayed even further due to all of this, meaning we're going to be stuck technologically in the generation that we're in right now for even longer. Personally, I'm okay with that mostly. I don't really think we need more powerful hardware right now anyways. I think in terms of graphics and whatnot, that the current available tech is more than enough for right now. I got my PS5 Pro and my Switch 2. For me, I'm pretty much covered when it comes to most games that come out now. That being said, good enough is, well, not good enough, depending on who you talk to. You see, the problem with consoles is that Sony, Xbox, or Nintendo, they sort of need you to want to buy their next hardware. Well, the reasoning is simple. It's all about forward momentum, because a console is really only as valuable as the content that you can play on it. If nobody is making games or buying the games, why would you buy the console? It's why the PS Vita sort of just ended abruptly one day, because developers stopped making games for it because the console wasn't selling as much, so the console just sort of got sunsetted, and that was pretty much it. So companies then need to make reasons as to why this studio or that publisher would want to make games for, let's say, the PS6 when it drops exclusively. Sony or Xbox are going to have to sell consoles, so publishers prioritize the consoles too. But if stuff just gets more expensive, everyone, I don't blame them, will just stick with what they already have. Oh, the PS6 is coming? Cool, but it costs an entire month's rent pretty much? Yeah, I'm going to stick with the PS5, thanks. But the reality then is that the PS6 will likely be at its cheapest like the PS5 was at release, which is dumb, but that's probably what's going to happen. Because if things continue the way that they do, the idea of waiting later to buy something when the price drops might never actually come. You see, the PS6 was meant to drop in 2027. That's the big rumor right now. It's supposed to have some sort of Nintendo Switch 2-like handheld device to accompany the launch of Sony's next console. No one knows yet for sure if that means the PS6 will literally be like a Switch 2 hybrid-like thing. My guess is it won't be. It likely will be like the PS5, just obviously much more powerful, and Sony will just drop their own Switch 2 Steam Deck variant to play their games on there as well. Which, yeah, that sounds cool in theory if the price is right, but the likelihood is it won't be. And again, this all swims right back to the same problem. Will it even be worth to buy then? Will the PS6 handheld even be powerful enough to justify the price point? Or will it just be another Vita situation, or how the Steam Deck's going right now, where people want the handheld, sure, but they just can't afford it? Because big tech companies are out here building their own Chernobyl data center towns that are eating up all the available stock, as Level Up shows right here. The current big rumor is the PS6 and its handheld will then be pushed back to 2028, but this puts Sony in a really weird position, because it means that their competitors could, and likely are obviously, working to make an even more powerful upgrade to whatever consoles they're selling to. So then by waiting too long, will Sony's next generation of hardware then be obsolete before it even comes out? Factor in the whole physical media problem we got going on right now, and that starts to spiral really quick. The thing is, some companies are using, let's just say, controversial ways to increase graphical fidelity without having to actually rely on you buying new consoles, but the results are mixed and controversial to say the least. You might remember the DLSS video where they used games like Resident Evil Requiem, and then Nvidia put their filter over the game claiming that it made it look better by using AI. Personally, this technique doesn't look like it's quite ready, right? Some games that Nvidia showed did look better, like Starfield, but the more beautiful and unique a game already looked, like Resident Evil Requiem, the worse they looked thanks to the AI upscaling technique in my opinion. So I guess if your game looks generic already like Starfield does, then this could be a boon, but the backlash towards this AI filter was nuclear for a reason. Either way though, places like Tom's Hardware and Windows Central believe that this use of DLSS by NVIDIA is a net positive, as you can see. Tom's Hardware claims by using this NVIDIA technology that they were able to make games that ran at 60 FPS normally to go up to levels of 247 FPS with the same exact hardware, meaning that older games and current ones could, I guess in theory, be ran exponentially better without having to buy a whole new console. But this brings another can of worms into the conversation that I'm sure companies want to push more over raw new hardware, which is subscription-based models. Obviously, like I said, NVIDIA has a chokehold on memory chips and all of that already, but besides trying to force this DLSS tech to use AI to upscale your games, they're also at the forefront of cloud-based gaming. This was reported by PC Mag in 2025, but as seen here, NVIDIA already implemented a 100-hour time limit to anyone that uses GeForce Now, which if you don't know, that is a subscription service that allows you to stream games to all sorts of things. You can play games on smart TVs, VR, computers, any of it without the console or anything, right? But again, you're time gated. But you can buy more time via GeForce as well. As seen here, 15 hours of game time can be bought for about $3 a pop. If you play GeForce Now at the ultimate tier, which is its highest, you'll pay even more for more hours of gameplay. Honestly, to me, it sounds cyberpunk in the worst way possible. I mean, granted, for most, maybe 100 hours is a lot to spend playing per month, so this likely maybe won't affect them. But this is just another encroaching avenue that companies are going to be pushing to circumvent the cost of expensive console hardware and again, make you own nothing and pay monthly for it. But if the future of games becomes digital, like it already is, then by association, the concept of streaming your games will likely then become the next frontier that many companies will try to push as well, which would make your ownership even more non-existent. But that's a bridge we're going to have to cross eventually, I'm sure, as Tweaktown showed here though. The PS6 will likely be changing its memory specs to keep its price even cheaper. So look here and you can see exactly what is rumored to be changed. Originally, the PS6 is meant to have 30 to 32 GDDR7 memory that will now have 24 gigabytes of VRAM, okay? So some people watching this might go, I have no idea what any of that even means. Fair enough, let me explain it to you. This means if the rumors are true that PS6's original GDDR7 would give the PS6 about a third more memory compared to what VRAM would give it. So the more memory that you have, this will then allow the graphics in the video games that you're playing to obviously have better textures and assets without sacrificing speed, which is a good thing, obviously. So this means that Sony's PS6 then would have a lower memory amount in this newer model that's rumored to happen that they want to sell to consumers in order to fix the costs. Personally, in my opinion, the cost difference doesn't really seem worth it though if the PS6 is set to lose 1/3 of its potential power for like a $60 price reduction. In my opinion, not really worth the trade-off, and they should probably stick with the original specs that they had already. But 24 gigabytes of VRAM means that the max bandwidth of the PS6 would be somewhere near about 1 terabytes per second. Like that's great obviously, but the original 32 gigabytes of GDDR7 is close to 1.8 terabytes per second. So obviously, you can already tell which one is better, right? The original, obviously. This would mean the PS6 would be firmly placed, still within the current realm of 4K gaming, where if they went with the original specs, the PS6 could hypothetically jump much further into almost 8K rendering. Not quite, but you know, a lot closer is the point here. Again, these sorts of decisions have to be made because of how expensive everything is or is going to be. And maybe that $60 difference could be the part that makes 10 million people buy a PS6 out of the gate, or maybe it's only 2 million because it's more expensive, you know? But like I said, this is all about forward momentum. If people don't buy the PS6 because it's too expensive, developers will not be obligated to support Sony's current hardware, which means games will instead be prioritized for PS5 despite the PS6 being out, which would not be good when you're trying to convince people to buy your new console that might cost God knows how much because of how expensive memory is these days. This is why gaming could end up becoming for the rich only, and everyone else will just exist on older hardware due to the price ranges alone. But if this happens, then that NVIDIA DLSS technology before that could, I guess, become the future for both game developers and players to then enhance their games. But I don't think it will be as widely accepted, especially not in any competitive scenes because of latency issues. If someone who plays I don't know, Call of Duty or like Fortnite professionally, right, has to choose between better graphics, but they have delayed inputs, or they get worse graphics, but everything runs smoothly and instantly, we both know which one they're going to pick. I do think technology like DLSS could lead to older games effectively maybe being remastered on the fly in theory without having to buy them again. Could be an interesting idea, I guess. Hard to tell if it would work though, but like despite all of this, Nvidia's GPUs, as Eurogamer showed here, they still went up 30% in price thanks to everything else I mentioned already. So the thought remains that with how expensive everything currently is, we might be forced into this current generation of hardware for longer than we'd like to be. But there's really no way that we can find a way out that currently works. If 70% of all memory and such is being eaten up by these mega town factories for AI, that only leaves roughly 30% of the stock right now being fought over by Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, and everyone else when it comes to TVs, computers, and then some, okay? It's a losing battle. Here's a pretty simple graph to show you, right? 2025 versus now. Obviously, line goes up, so does the cost. So what started below 250 American dollars is now hitting close to 1,250 American for the exact same thing. Uh-oh, indeed, guys. As Tom's Hardware said here via the data center fiasco, there's really no limit to how much these people will pay for these memory chips, which means you and me, we're screwed pretty much. For example, right, my TV kicked the bucket about a week and a half ago. It sucked, but I mean, what can you do, right? So anyways, I went and I bought a new TV. I upgraded the model. TV was about $600 to $700 more expensive this year than it was if I bought that same TV last year. Why? For literally all the same reasons as everything else in this video. This is the uncomfortable reality of the AI revolution, guys. The technology companies get the cutting edge silicon like they always do. The data centers get the enormous memory allocations they need because they have to. And the enterprise customers always get priority because, well, they have the most money. But the little guys, like you and me, we get told to spend more for things that make no sense. Here's $2,000 for a graphics card, and somehow that's normal. But that's also where things become interesting, or I guess annoying, depending on how you look at it. You see, everyone is a part of the same broader, I guess, semiconductor ecosystem, unfortunately. And you see, the manufacturers that are producing memory, they have limited capacity, like I said. And when the most profitable customers on Earth suddenly demand enormous amounts of specialized memory, like they have been doing, well, the manufacturers then have a very obvious incentive then, which is to build what makes them the most money. And AI is obviously making an absurd amount of money right now. So because major manufacturers are prioritizing AI and enterprise stuff, I guess, it means that that cost then has to be balanced somewhere else, which is, well, you guys. You become the ones who have to carry the burden when you buy a new PC, laptop, phone, whatever it is. Suddenly now it's your problem. I mean, you didn't create the issue. We all know that, but they just find you and everyone else watching to be the most convenient scapegoats to then balance the spreadsheets. So you are going to pay or you get nothing. Yeah, it's bleak. And when you have single memory stacks that are capable of moving like terabytes of data every second, like these big guys are building these entire systems around this stuff now. It's like industry scale computing, man. It's getting out of hand. Like these town factories, whatever that they're making, they're built like with thousands upon thousands of accelerators and memory chips now. And the more powerful that AI becomes, which is like rapid, what will then happen? All right, they need more memory. And that's why memory has become the biggest bottleneck and why this has become such an awful thing timing wise for you if you play video games. Gaming was already expensive, right? Stuff like SSDs have also become essential. If you have a PS5 or an Xbox Series, you know how your console loads everything super fast compared to the previous generation. Yeah, that's your SSD that's doing that. So this is now pushing people out of enthusiast territory really fast, but it also begs a bigger question, which is why are we relying on AI tricks then like DLSS, like I said, to then compensate in theory for this enormous cost of delivering performance? It's not that stuff like DLSS or other things like FSR are bad technologies. No, of course not, right? They're pretty much incredible, but they're also becoming incredibly convenient for an industry that needs to justify increasingly expensive hardware. It doesn't really make any sense to me. So now instead of having a GPU that can make things stronger for you, they're going to now sell you the idea of here's a GPU that's going to use AI to, I don't know, reconstruct what you're seeing instead. It's a weird fix. It might work for some people, but I don't think it will be widely adopted the way that they think it will. But that's the nightmare. If AI nonsense keeps expanding as it already is, well, memory manufacturers like a Samsung and more, what are they going to do? They're going to keep prioritizing it. If a company can sell a massive quantity of specialized memory to $1 billion company building AI data centers, why would it prioritize a single gamer buying a couple of sticks of RAM or or a new console. And because AI infrastructure is the future for these guys, it just becomes a dance of what makes them the most money. So then we as consumers, we lose in the end. That's the point. This all ends with us having a systemic affordability problem, all right? That's putting it lightly, because the average person cannot compete with Microsoft or, I don't know, Sony for these parts. And if every component becomes more expensive, which it is, the entire platform then becomes less accessible, whether it's PlayStation, Steam, Nintendo, any of them. That's the real danger here. Not that a wealthy enthusiast has to spend another few $100s. No, they can afford that. It's instead that teenager who used to save up for a decent gaming PC who simply now just can't afford one anymore, no matter really what they do, and that sucks big time. The only good news here is that these sorts of things are kind of cyclical, right? SK Hynix, that's one of the big three that makes memory, they already said that they're building new facilities to meet the insane demand. So eventually, I guess hopefully in theory, supply could catch up with demand. Eventually, maybe prices could normalize, or who knows, another new technology comes out of nowhere, disrupts the market, and they pivot again, right? That's also a possibility. But I guess the question then becomes, well, how long are we all expected to wait for things to get better then? And what if this demand for AI never really slows down? It keeps expanding year over year. Eventually, they're going to have to start sending like probes into space to find enough materials to make these freaking things at this rate. Look, I'm not against AI. It can help a lot. I get that 100%. But there needs to be a middle ground here. But right now, if you like playing video games, it's a losing battle because we as players have become, well, I just got to say the way it is, the low priority customer in this story. It's just the truth. And that's why the memory crisis matters the way that it does, because gaming was once supposed to be one of the easiest ways to get, entertainment without spending a fortune. But if we aren't careful, the era of affordable high performance gaming, it's going to disappear in like a year or two at best. All because the average person can no longer afford to keep up, and that would be one of the most ironic outcomes imaginable too. Because if the technology industry could create the most powerful hardware humanity has ever seen, while also making it harder than ever for ordinary people to own it, like, wow, what a world to live in, huh? Well, let me know what you think as always. Thanks for being here. Subscribe if you'd like to. I'll keep you guys up to date on all this crazy stuff as always. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you guys next time.